AITA for refusing to help my parents after they sided with my brother, who got my fiancée pregnant? I always knew that my 20-year-old brother, Kyle, was the golden child. Even when we were kids, it was obvious. My parents, especially my mom, always treated him differently. If Kyle cried because his block tower had collapsed, Mom would sit with him for an hour, hug him, and tell him he was sensitive and needed special attention. As for me, I was told to stop acting like a baby and clean up my mess. I understood very early on that the rules weren't the same for him and for me. Kyle was always special in their eyes. Mom said it was because he was sensitive, and Dad fed all his dreams of seeing him become a doctor. For my dad, I think it was a way to live his own dream through him. Dad had always wanted to be a doctor, but he had never managed to finish his studies. Kyle represented his second chance. Meanwhile, I was just Michael. I was neither special nor sensitive. I was just the kid who got good grades, who didn't cause trouble, and who didn't ask for much. I didn't need my hand held like Kyle, so I was ignored. I didn't realize how deeply ingrained it was. When I got a full scholarship to study computer science, I thought, finally, they were going to be proud of me. Who wouldn't be happy that their son got a full ride to college? No, I remember that moment perfectly. I was in the kitchen, letter in hand. My mom glanced at it, nodded, and said, "That's good. Honey, you'll be able to help Kyle fill out his med school applications later." That was it. That was all the recognition I received after working like crazy to get that scholarship. Meanwhile, Kyle, who was still in high school struggling to get a passing grade in biology, was treated as if he had discovered a cure for cancer, given the way Mom praised him. And it wasn't just about academics. Everything I did seemed insignificant compared to Kyle. For example, when I started dating Ashley in my senior year, I was madly in love. It was my first real relationship, and she was amazing. Ashley was the kind of person who put you at ease just by being there. She worked part-time at a salon while finishing high school, and even back then, she was putting money aside for the future. She was thoughtful, smart, and cared a lot about me. But my parents didn't care. They didn't even want to meet her. When Thanksgiving came around that year, I asked if Ashley could come over for dinner. Mom literally told me, "It's just teenage puppy love. Don't make a big deal out of it." That hurt me. I wanted them to know her, to see what I saw in her. But no, Ashley wasn't important enough. Kyle, on the other hand, had every one of his girlfriends treated like a princess. They were always invited to family meals, received slices of homemade pie, and my parents showered them with praise as if they were already their daughters-in-law. I remember a dinner where Mom asked Kyle's girlfriend what her dreams and career plans were. I sat there wondering where that enthusiasm was for Ashley. Still, Ashley and I held strong. I went off to college on my scholarship while she stayed in town, working at the salon and saving money. We did long distance for 2 years, video calling on weekends and visiting whenever I could. We held strong. It wasn't easy, but we were building something. When I asked her to marry me last summer, it all made sense. We were in a small park near her apartment, and I had saved up to get her a simple but beautiful ring. She cried when I popped the question, and we laughed through our tears because we were so happy. For the first time, I felt like my life was really moving forward. To my great surprise, my parents seemed to accept Ashley after our engagement. It was as if a switch had flipped in my mom's head. Suddenly, Ashley was part of the family. Mom even started asking her questions about the wedding and the dress she wanted to wear. At that moment, I thought it was a good sign that they were finally starting to see me. Me, not just Kyle. I should have known better. Thanksgiving came around again. This time, I was excited. I planned to officially announce the wedding and talk about the future. Maybe even show them how well I was doing in college and at my internship. I felt like everything was finally starting to align for me. Then I got a text. It was from Ashley, out of nowhere. "We need to talk. Starbucks. Urgent." I got a knot in my stomach, but tried to calm down. I told myself she was probably just stressed about the wedding. When I walked into Starbucks, I will never forget her face. Ashley was sitting at a small table in the corner, holding her coffee cup with both hands, as if it were the only thing keeping her upright. She refused to look at me. I sat down, and before I could even ask her what was going on, she dropped the bomb. "I'm pregnant. It's Kyle's." Those words hit me like a punch to the chest. I felt like I couldn't breathe. For a second, I thought I had misheard. I even asked her to repeat it, hoping I had misunderstood. But no, she said it again. She started crying, trying to explain. She said it happened over the summer when Kyle kept coming by the salon. He would talk to her about the distance between us, about how lonely she must be feeling. She said she didn't even know how it started, that it just happened. She kept apologizing, saying she never wanted it to go this far. I didn't yell. I didn't get angry. I just stood there looking at her. After a minute, I got up, took my keys, and left. I didn't say anything. I just left. I don't remember much of the drive back after that bomb exploded in my face. My brain seemed disconnected from the rest of my body. The radio was playing something, probably one of those overplayed pop songs, but it was just noise. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I was just empty. When I got to my parents' house, it was already dark. I parked in the driveway and stood there for a moment staring at the porch light. Everything felt surreal, as if I were about to step into an illogical dream. I didn't even know if I was ready to face Kyle or my parents, but I needed answers. As soon as I walked into the house, I saw him. Kyle was sitting on the couch, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped. It was his typical posture, head down like a kid who just got caught red-handed. My mom was hovering around him, patting his back and handing him tissues. She wasn't crying, but she looked worried, as if he were the victim. My dad was standing by the window, arms crossed, without saying a word. He looked like he wanted to flee the situation. The tension in the room was suffocating. It felt like they were all waiting for me, like I was the last piece of a twisted puzzle. What is going on here? I said. My voice came out calmer than I intended, but it broke the silence. My mom was the first to speak. Michael, sit down. Let's talk about this calmly. Calmly. That word immediately made my blood boil. I didn't want calm. I wanted the truth. I wanted to know how my fiancée, the woman I planned to build my life with, had ended up pregnant by my brother. Don't tell me to stay calm. I spat. I stared Kyle right in the eyes. You should be the one talking. Say something. Kyle didn't look up. He just mumbled something under his breath. What? I said louder this time. Speak up. My mom immediately spoke up, as if she were his lawyer. He's taking responsibility, Michael. This is a big step for him. He's going to be a father. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A big step? As if it were an achievement to celebrate. I laughed, but it wasn't an amused laugh. It was bitter. A father? He's not even capable of passing a basic biology class, and you think he's ready to be a parent? I shot back, looking at my dad. He was still staring out the window, as if none of this concerned him. Do you have nothing to say, Dad? My dad finally turned to me, sighing as if I were the problem here. They're young. Mistakes happen, Michael. If you really love Ashley, you have to let her go. They're going to have a baby. Let her go, I repeated. I felt the anger boiling inside me. That's your solution? Your son crossed a serious line with my fiancée, and I'm supposed to just step aside. Don't talk like that, my mom cried out. It's a blessing, Michael. A blessing? I cut in. A sign of what? That your precious son is incapable of taking responsibility for his actions? That I have to take it all in again, without saying a word? My mom's face hardened. Kyle made a mistake, but he's doing the right thing now. He's taking responsibility, and we need to support him as a family. As a family? Those words broke something inside me. I realized in that moment that I wasn't really part of their family. Not really. I was just the other son, the one who did everything right but never mattered as much as Kyle. I looked at Kyle again. He still hadn't said a word, not even a fake apology. He couldn't even lift his head. You know what? I said, my voice trembling. Fine. You want to support him? Do it. I'm done. I'm washing my hands of all of you. My mom looked shocked. Michael, don't say things you don't mean. No, I mean it, I replied. You made your choice. It's him. It has always been him. I turned around and went straight to my room. I could hear my mom behind me trying to calm me down, but I couldn't care less. I grabbed a suitcase from the closet and started throwing my things into it. Clothes, my laptop, books. My hands were shaking so much that I dropped things, but I didn't stop. Michael, you're reacting out of anger, my mom said from the doorway. This is your family. I turned back to her, and for the first time, I completely didn't care what she thought. No, you are his family. You haven't been mine for a long time. She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't feel anything anymore. No guilt, no sorrow. When I finished packing my suitcase, my dad came in next. He stood next to my mom with that usual look of disappointment he gave me whenever I didn't go along with their plans. You're overreacting, he said. Overreacting, I repeated. Your son had an inappropriate relationship with my fiancée, and I'm the one overreacting. I pushed past them and dragged my suitcase to the car. Neither of them tried to stop me. I think they believed I would eventually calm down and come back, but I knew I wouldn't. It was over. I drove back to campus that night. A 3-hour drive in complete silence. I didn't even turn on the music. When I got to my dorm room, I sat on the bed and stared at the wall. Everything felt surreal, as if I were watching someone else's life disintegrate. The next morning, I changed my phone number. I deleted all my social media accounts and created new ones. I blocked my parents, Kyle and Ashley. All the photos I had of her ended up in the trash. I didn't even look at them. I couldn't. In the following weeks, my friends noticed I was acting weird. They would ask for updates on the wedding, and I would simply answer, "It's canceled. I don't want to talk about it." That was enough to shut them up. The only person I stayed in touch with was my Aunt Marie. She sent me a message a week later. "I heard what happened. I'm on your side, my nephew. They'll regret it one day, trust me." At that moment, I didn't care whether they'd regret it or not. I just wanted to disappear. The days following my break from the family were like a strange state of limbo. I wasn't sad. I wasn't angry. I was just empty. I would get up, go to class, and stay up late in front of my computer until I was too tired to think. I didn't want to face what had happened because if I did, I was afraid I would fall apart. I went into robot mode. Wake up, code, go to class, eat if I remembered to. Repeat. I stopped talking to most of my friends. Some asked why Ashley wasn't coming around anymore or what was going on with the wedding, and I would just reply, "It's over. I don't want to talk about it." I didn't owe anyone an explanation, and I had no desire to recount the disaster my life had become. I threw myself heart and soul into coding and my studies like a man possessed. It was the only thing I could control. I had always been good at programming, but now it was all I had left. I would stay up late at night in the computer lab creating random projects or tweaking my own scripts just to pass the time. When I wasn't working on homework, I was learning new languages or tinkering with cybersecurity software. Anything to keep my mind occupied. My professors eventually noticed the amount of time I was spending there. One of them, Professor Adams, who taught an elective course on cybersecurity, pulled me aside one afternoon and asked if I wanted to help with a research project he was working on. He didn't have the budget to pay me, but he said it would look good on my resume. I accepted without hesitation. I didn't care about the resume. I just needed a reason to keep busy. Working with Professor Adams turned out to be the best thing that could have happened to me. He was a straightforward guy with a brilliant, dry sense of humor. I spent all my free time in his office or at the lab, learning penetration testing, vulnerability scanning, and encryption algorithms. For the first time in months, I felt like I was building something concrete, something that couldn't be taken away from me. While I was burying myself in work, life at home was falling apart. I didn't know it right away, of course, since I no longer had contact with them. But Aunt Marie started keeping me updated. Aunt Marie is my mom's older sister, and she has always been the black sheep of the family. She never got along well with Mom, but she always liked me. I think she couldn't stand the way my parents treated Kyle. She was the only person I didn't block. Every now and then, she would send me a text or an email to check in on me. About 6 months after I cut ties, she sent me a message. "Kyle was kicked out of med school. I thought you should know." I stared at my phone for a long time after reading that. I don't know what I expected to feel. Satisfaction, perhaps, or a sense of justice, but all I felt was emptiness. Of course he had failed. He already struggled with high school biology, let alone med school. I put my phone down and went back to my code. Over the following months, Aunt Marie kept me in the loop. Kyle hadn't told my parents about his bad grades until he was officially dismissed from the school. By that time, he had already burned through most of the money my dad had saved for his education. My parents were furious at first, but they quickly fell back into their usual routine of making excuses for him. My mom said Kyle was under too much pressure and needed time to find himself. My dad blamed the school, calling it too harsh. The truth is, Kyle had never worked for anything in his life. So when things got tough, he quit. After dropping out, Kyle moved back in with my parents. For the first few months, he did nothing, absolutely nothing, while my parents coddled him like a child. My mom was always finding excuses for his idleness. He's still processing everything. And my dad kept talking about second chances. Meanwhile, Ashley had given birth to a baby girl. She was raising her alone, mainly because Kyle made no effort. He helped out from time to time, but according to Aunt Marie, it was only because my mom harassed him until he spent an hour or two with his child. None of this made me any happier. On the contrary, it merely confirmed what I already knew. My parents would always choose Kyle, no matter the magnitude of his mistakes. But while they spent their time cleaning up his messes, I was building my own life. By the time I graduated, I already had a job offer from a startup interested in the cybersecurity software I had helped develop with Professor Adams. They liked my work so much that they offered me a junior developer position with equity in the company. I accepted and moved to a new city, far away from everything I had left behind. The first few months at the startup were rough. I worked 12-hour days. I lived on instant noodles and slept on a mattress on the floor. But I didn't care. I was finally doing something that mattered. The software we were developing had real potential, and I was part of it. One evening, after a particularly long day, I received another message. Kyle is working at Target now. Mom is worried about him. They don't know what to do anymore. I read the message, then put my phone down and lay there staring at the ceiling. I wasn't surprised. Kyle had spent his whole life hearing that he was special, and now he was discovering that he wasn't. I knew it wasn't my problem, but it left a strange taste in my mouth. Not sadness. No, just weariness. I didn't reply to Aunt Marie that night. I didn't know what to say. A year later, my startup blew up. The software we designed attracted investors, and suddenly, we were growing at a crazy speed. I was promoted to lead developer with a nice salary bump and enough money to move into a real apartment. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my life. I thought less and less about my family. They were no longer part of my world, and that suited me just fine. Aunt Marie still gave me updates from time to time, but I no longer asked about Kyle or my parents. I didn't want to know. Then, for years after I left that house, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but a gut feeling told me to answer. It wasn't a safe contact, and I rarely got random calls. Most people contacted me via email or Slack. So when I picked up and heard my mom's voice on the other end, I froze. "Michael," she said. Her voice was shaking as if she had been crying for hours. "Michael, it's me. Please don't hang up." It took me a few seconds to find my voice. "How did you get this number?" I hadn't spoken to anyone in my family for almost 4 years. I had made sure they couldn't reach me, but apparently, she had found a way. "I got it from Aunt Marie," she admitted. "Please, listen to me. We need your help. Things have gotten difficult." That word, difficult, sounded like a grotesque understatement, but I didn't say anything. I gripped my phone so tightly that my knuckles turned white. I should have hung up right then, but I didn't. I don't know why. Maybe I just wanted to hear her out. Maybe some stupid part of me was curious to know what they wanted. "What's going on?" I asked flatly. My voice was colder than I intended, but I didn't care. My mom let out a shaky breath, and then the words poured out, uncontrollable. "We've hit a rough patch, Michael. Your dad's health isn't good. He's already been hospitalized twice this year for his heart, and we had to sell the house because of Kyle's mistakes." "Kyle's mistakes," I repeated. I knew I shouldn't have asked, but I couldn't help myself. She hesitated for a moment, and then it all came out at once. Apparently, Kyle had borrowed $40,000 for a so-called business opportunity a friend had pitched to him. Mom didn't specify what it was, probably because she didn't know or refused to admit how stupid it was. The business went bankrupt in less than a month. When Kyle couldn't repay the loan, my parents stepped in to bail him out by dipping into their retirement savings. Add to that Dad's medical bills, and they were forced to sell the house. They were now living in a small, 2-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of town. And of course, Kyle was living with them. Where else would he go? "Michael, we have nothing left," Mom said, her voice trembling as if holding back tears. "Kyle is making an effort. He's looking for a job, but..." "Looking for a job," I interrupted, anger rising. "Mom, Kyle is 24. He's an adult. Why do you keep fixing his messes?" "Because we are his parents," she replied sharply, as if that justified everything. Then her tone softened. "Michael, we need you. Please help us." I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "Why would I help you? You made it very clear 4 years ago where I stood in this family." "That's not fair," she protested. "We didn't know what to do at the time. Kyle made a mistake, but he's trying to change now." "Trying? You mean he's still mooching off you like always?" A long silence settled on the other end of the line. I could hear her shaky breathing. "Please, Michael," she finally said. Your dad is very sick and I don't know what to do anymore. We have nothing left. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. For a moment, I imagined what they might look like today. Dad, with gray hair, hunched over, staring out the window of a cramped apartment. Mom pacing back and forth, wringing her hands. Kyle slouched on the couch, head down, exactly like that night 4 years ago. It was almost too easy to picture. But I felt no pity. Not really. I was just tired, as if all of this were the logical consequence of their choices. You made a choice, I said softly. You had an option, and you chose Kyle. Now you live with it. Michael, she started. I have nothing to give you. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up before she could answer. My hands were shaking when I placed them on the kitchen table. I stood there for a long time staring at the phone, almost expecting her to call back. But she didn't. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat on my couch in the dark, replaying the conversation over and over again. I told myself I didn't care, that they were simply reaping what they had sown. But despite my best efforts to convince myself, I couldn't shake off this gnawing emptiness inside me. It wasn't guilt. I didn't feel sorry for them, but hearing my mom's voice, hearing how desperate she sounded, stirred something in me that I didn't want to face. The next day, I called Aunt Marie. I figured you would call me after that, she said. I could hear the clinking of her coffee mug on the other end. Your mom told me she planned to contact you. She got my number from you. I asked, trying to sound annoyed without much success. Relax, kid, Aunt Marie replied. I didn't give it to her. She must have tracked it down some other way. You know your mom. She never gives up. I sighed and rubbed my face. Is it that bad, Aunt Marie? Tell me the truth. She let out a long sigh. Yes, Michael, it's bad. Your dad's heart isn't what it used to be, and they are completely broke. As for Kyle, well, you know how he is. He's still waiting for life to hand him something on a silver platter. Your parents are barely scraping by. And your mom doesn't know how to handle it all anymore. She shouldn't have to handle it, I said bitterly. It's Kyle's job to do that. Yeah, well, some people never grow up, Aunt Marie replied. We talked a little while longer, then I hung up, completely drained. Aunt Marie had never tried to sugarcoat things, and I appreciated her for that. But hearing how deep a hole my parents had dug for themselves only made me feel more distant from them. I had spent the last 4 years building my own life, a life they were not a part of. And now, they wanted me to come back and fix everything. No way. I couldn't. Over the following weeks, I buried myself in work more than ever. My company was growing, and we were preparing for a major update to our software, so I had plenty to keep my mind occupied. I kept telling myself that I was fine, that my parents were not my responsibility, that I owed them nothing. But at night, when the apartment grew quiet and my thoughts had nowhere left to go, I could still hear my mom's voice. We need your help. It didn't take long for Aunt Marie to fill in the blanks my mom had left out of her story. After that call, I would message her every now and then. Not because I really wanted updates, but because curiosity always ends up gnawing at you, even when you want to ignore it. I guess I just wanted to see how far things had plummeted, kind of like rubbernecking at a car crash on the side of the road. A week after that call, Aunt Marie sent me an email. I think you should know that your parents sold their car. Kyle needed money for a new investment project. God only knows why. Your mom cried for hours after letting it go. I reread that sentence several times while drinking my morning coffee. Then I shook my head. I shouldn't have been surprised. Selling their car was typical of my parents, bending over backward to save Kyle yet another time. The golden child could do no wrong, even as he ruined them. Aunt Marie told me more over the passing weeks. Kyle had embarked on a new business venture. Apparently, an old friend had led him to believe he could make thousands by reselling refurbished electronics on the internet. Obviously, it didn't work out. Kyle knew nothing about the business world. In less than a month, it all fell apart, but not before he begged my parents to invest in his project. This time, they didn't have a dime left to save him, not after selling their car and already losing their house. Aunt Marie told me that Kyle had thrown a tantrum when they refused, like a toddler denied candy at the grocery store. My mom still tried to console him. We'll find a way, sweetheart. Don't worry. It would have been funny if it weren't so pathetic. Meanwhile, I kept moving forward. My company was having its best year ever. The software we created was drawing a lot of attention, and I started traveling to meet with investors and partners. I bought a new car and moved into a larger apartment. My life was finally starting to look like something I had built myself, without their help, without their approval. At work, nobody knew my family history. To them, I was just a guy who worked hard and got a little lucky. And maybe that was true. One day, about 3 months after that call, Aunt Marie sent me a new email. That one hit me harder than the rest. Your dad has been hospitalized again. Nothing major this time. He is stable. But your mom had the scare of her life. She doesn't say it, but I think she knows she's out of options. I stood there staring at my phone for a long time after reading it. In my childhood mind, my dad had always been a solid, almost indestructible figure. Even though he wasn't particularly affectionate, he exuded a kind of stability. Picturing him sick and frail felt surreal. But I didn't reach out. I couldn't. A month later, Aunt Marie called me. This was unlike her. She sent texts or emails, never called. So, I knew something was wrong. I picked up on the second ring. Hi, Aunt Marie, I said. What's going on? She sighed. Your parents are in worse shape than I thought. What now? I asked. Your mom lost her job, she replied. They're living on next to nothing now. Your dad can't work anymore because of his health. And Kyle, well, you know him. Still at home, unemployed, doing nothing while they struggle to pay the rent. I didn't say anything. What could I have said? Michael, Aunt Marie resumed after a pause. They're desperate. Your mom won't admit it to me, but I can see it. She often asks me if I've heard from you. She drops hints. I think she's still hoping you'll swoop in and save the day. They aren't my problem, I said calmly. I know, she replied, but she doesn't see it that way. We stayed silent for a few seconds. Then she added, I'm not telling you all this to make you feel guilty, Michael. I just thought you should be aware. Thanks for letting me know, I said. You're doing well, keep at it. Don't let them drag you back into their drama. I won't let that happen, I replied, and I genuinely meant it. It was around that time that I grew curious enough to look up Kyle online. I hadn't looked at anything about him in years. Accounts blocked, no mutual friends, nothing. But curiosity eventually won out. I opened a private window and typed his name into Facebook. His profile was still public. His last post was from a few weeks ago. A picture of him sitting on my parents' couch in sweatpants, a video game controller in hand. The caption read, chilling. Life is short, you know. The comments made me cringe. His old friends were actually encouraging him. You deserve the rest, man. Don't worry, your time will come, bro. I closed the tab in disgust. How could he still have people praising him when he had done nothing with his life? Meanwhile, my parents were sacrificing themselves to keep him afloat. I considered sending a screenshot to Aunt Marie, but what was the point? A few months later, the company I worked for landed a major contract. The payout I received from my shares set me up financially for years to come. I celebrated with my colleagues over a nice dinner. Then I went home to my quiet apartment. Sitting on my couch, I thought back on how far I'd come. I had everything I had worked for, freedom, stability, a career I was proud of. But no matter how much distance I put between them and me, a part of me still carried the weight of my family. I wouldn't say I missed my family, not really. What I missed was the idea of a family that would have been proud of me, that would have supported me and chosen me when it mattered. But that wasn't the family I had. That evening, I wrote a message to Aunt Marie. Thank you for everything you've done for me these past few years. I don't know where I'd be without your support. I hope you're doing well. Let me know if you ever need anything. She replied almost instantly. Proud of you, Michael. Keep building your life. I'm doing just fine. At some point, you have to stop looking back. You have to let go of the idea that things could have been different. My parents had made their choice. Kyle had made his, and I had made mine. I didn't know them anything anymore. It had been almost 5 years since I turned my back on my family. But sometimes, it still felt like it had happened yesterday. The chaos, the betrayal, the night I packed my things and left the house. These memories didn't haunt me because I hadn't healed, but because they were part of me, of who I had become. Today, my life looked nothing like it did before. My company had grown well beyond anything I could have imagined. We were no longer a hesitant little startup. We had become a solid player in the cybersecurity field. I finally had control over my own time. I traveled whenever I felt like it. I invested in new projects. I worked on ideas that mattered to me. My house, a modern, quiet space that I bought a year earlier, had become my sanctuary. I didn't need much to be happy. Peace and stability were enough for me. But no matter how much my life improved, there were always moments when the past came knocking at the door. One of those moments arrived on a completely ordinary Thursday evening. I was finishing up my workday when I received a message request on Facebook. I barely used that platform anymore, but I clicked on it out of habit. The message was from Kyle. I sat frozen in front of the screen, hesitant to open it. A part of me just wanted to ignore it, delete the message, and move on. But curiosity finally won out. I clicked. His message was short. "Hey, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I'm trying to fix things. I messed up and I'm sorry for everything. Mom and Dad aren't doing well. I just wanted you to know." I stared at those words for a long time. I'm sorry for everything. That's what he had written. After all these years, that was all he could manage to say. An apology arriving 5 years too late. I didn't reply. I couldn't. That night, lying in bed, I thought about my brother. Kyle had always been the one I resented the most. Not because of what he had done with Ashley, but because of everything else. The way my parents had raised him, everything they had handed to him without him ever earning it. The way he just took and took without ever offering anything in return. But deep down, he wasn't the only problem. It was also my parents who had molded him that way, and now they were paying the price. But it was no longer my problem. The next morning, Aunt Marie called me. She didn't do that often, only when it was serious. So I answered right away. "Michael, it's your dad," she said, her voice softer than usual, as if she dreaded my reaction. "What's wrong with him?" "He had another heart attack. This time it's serious. The doctors don't think he's going to make it." I sat down at the kitchen table, the words echoing in my head. I didn't know what to say. "Your mom is devastated," she added. "She's not coping. And Kyle, well, you know how he is." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "What does she expect from me?" "She didn't say anything," Aunt Marie replied. "But you know her. She's surely hoping you'll come, that you'll be there." For a moment, I thought about it. Going back there, sitting by my dad's bedside, seeing my mom again, seeing Kyle again. Maybe they would finally look at me differently. Maybe they would be sorry. But I quickly realized that wasn't what I wanted. I wasn't looking for redemption or apologies. I had made peace with all of that a long time ago. "I'm sorry about Dad," I finally said, "but I'm not going back, Aunt Marie. I can't." She didn't try to convince me. "I figured as much," she simply said. "You did what you had to do, Michael. Don't feel guilty about it." "I don't," I replied. And it was true. My dad died a week later. Aunt Marie sent me an email to let me know. She told me there had been a small ceremony, a few family members, a few neighbors. Kyle was there, of course, next to my mom, as if nothing had changed. I didn't go. I thought about it, but deep down, I knew my presence would only make things worse. I had nothing left to say to them, and I didn't want to pretend otherwise. My dad was gone, and whatever I could have said to him had been lost years earlier. That day, I stayed in my office working, focused on a new project. I didn't say anything to anyone. To my colleagues, it was just another day, and honestly, that suited me perfectly. A few months later, Aunt Marie reached out again. This time, it was about my mom. "She's not doing very well, Michael," she told me over the phone. "Your dad's death hit her hard." "And Kyle?" I asked. "Kyle is still Kyle. He lives with her, but he doesn't do anything to help. She's struggling to pay the bills." I took a deep breath. "And what does she want me to do?" "Nothing," Aunt Marie quickly replied. "I'm just telling you so you know. You don't owe her anything, Michael. You've already given enough." That was what I liked about her. She never tried to make me feel guilty. She just told the truth and let me choose. "I'll think about it," I said. But I already knew I wouldn't do anything. In the end, I never reached back out to my mom. I thought about it sometimes, especially after Aunt Marie's updates. But every time, the memories would come rushing back. The living room that night, their cold stares, their words that hurt me, the moment they chose Kyle over and over again instead of me. Some people say family is everything. I don't believe that. Family is everything only if they treat you like you matter. Otherwise, you have the right to walk away. You have the right to choose yourself. That's what I did. Years later, I kept building my life, moving forward. I had a house, a career, and friends who felt much more like family than my own blood ever had. I didn't hate my parents or Kyle anymore. I was no longer angry. In truth, I felt free. Sometimes, freedom doesn't come from winning. It simply comes from walking away. Comment. Sometimes the hardest lessons come from the people closest to us. Learning to set boundaries is not about pushing people away, but about protecting your peace. You have the right to choose yourself, especially when it feels like you are not being chosen. True healing often begins the moment you stop waiting for an apology you may never receive. You are responsible for the life you build from the ground up. Kindness is not always soft. Sometimes, it is the strength to walk away from what hurts you. Your future is not defined by the roles others have placed on you. The goal is not to be right, but to be at peace with your own life and choices. Always remember that your well-being is a valid and worthy priority. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.